5-Minute Habits for Healthy Living. Today is habit number 3, downsize your eating habits. Hello, this is Dr. Brian Morris, and welcome to 5-Minute Habits for Healthy Living, where you will learn the tools to practice a healthy lifestyle 5 minutes at a time. Life has become very complicated with a seemingly endless amount of health information at our fingertips. How do you know what to believe and what not to believe? In this podcast, I sort through the maze of information and distill it into easy-to-digest, time-tested, evidence-based practical strategies for optimal health. I've been practicing internal medicine for 20 years. I went to medical school at Johns Hopkins, I trained at Yale, and I previously held a teaching position at Harvard Medical School. I currently practice medicine and hold a teaching appointment at UCLA Medical School here in Los Angeles, where I teach these tools and these strategies to medical students, house staff, doctors, and of course, to my patients. Before we get to this week's habit, I'd like to remind you that the information contained in this podcast and at 5minutemd.com is intended solely for educational purposes and should not be used to diagnose, treat, or prevent any health condition or illness. This information may not apply to a specific health situation and is not a substitute for medical care by a qualified, licensed, board-certified healthcare professional. Please consult with your healthcare provider before implementing any of the ideas in this podcast or making any changes in your healthcare regimen. In the first 2 episodes of this podcast, we reviewed the importance of habit number 1, eating the correct number of calories each day, and habit 2, making sure that our calories are as nutritious as possible. So this makes it sound like we can simply be given the right number of calories to eat each day and a list of the good and the bad foods, and then everything will be perfect. Unfortunately, life doesn't work like that. Why? Because we are highly influenced by our environment. Sometimes we don't like to admit that, but what surrounds us has a great influence on how we feel and how we act. Advertisers know this, but most of us are unaware of how much of an impact the environment has on our behavior, in this case, how much we eat. When most people are asked why they eat and why they stop eating, most people will say that they eat when they're hungry and they stop eating when they are full. Most of us believe that our internal condition, our internal state, determines how much we eat. However, in study after study, it turns out that the environment that surrounds us has a much greater impact on how much we eat than we ever imagined. Much of this research has been done by Brian Wansink and is well summarized in his excellent book, Mindless Eating. One of his significant findings is that plate size has a tremendous impact on how much we eat. In one study, reducing the size of our plates by 2 inches in diameter reduced how many calories people ate by about 22%. This means that a simple way to help us eat less and reduce our portions is to eat our meals on smaller plates. It sounds so simple, almost too simple, but it really does work. Try it the next few nights. Put your dinner on a large plate and then put your dinner on a small plate and you'll see how different the meal looks. On the large plate, the meal looks like a relatively average-sized portion and one that may require a second helping. On the small plate, the meal looks fairly large and much more satisfying. In addition, it's simply easier to put more food on a larger plate, so we tend to load up more food on the large plate, increasing our portion sizes. Using a small plate makes us feel like we've eaten more food, and it also forces us to go get seconds, as we can't fit as much food on our plate. Sometimes we will go get seconds, but sometimes we won't, and skipping that second plate can be the difference of 200 or 300 calories in a day. And remember, eating 200 fewer calories per day translates to 20 less pounds on the scale in 1 year. So if you can find a way to eat 200 fewer calories per day On average, that will translate to losing about 20 pounds in 1 year. And it's not just the size of our plates, the size of our utensils, our serving containers, our cereal boxes, our bowls. All of this affects how much we eat. Reducing the size of these items can reduce our calorie intake by upwards of 30 to 40%, according to the different research studies that have been done. And the beauty of this is that it's passive. We don't have to even think about it or apply any discipline. All we have to do is use smaller plates, smaller bowls, smaller boxes, smaller utensils, and it will be much easier to eat smaller portions. You'll immediately find it easier to reduce portion sizes. And smaller portions means fewer calories per day and more success. Here's your homework for this week. Downsize your kitchen. Reduce the size of your plates that you use by about 2 inches in diameter. Typically, this means use salad plates as your dinner plates. Use smaller bowls if you eat cereal or soup. Use smaller utensils. Store leftovers in smaller containers. Transfer food from those really large Costco-sized containers into smaller ones. You will be amazed how much benefit you will experience with these simple changes and how much easier it will be to keep your portions under control. Let's keep the dialogue going. Let me know what you think of this week's Habit for Healthy Living. Post your comments and your experiences on the 5 Minute MD Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter at Brian Morris MD and visit us anytime at 5minutemd.com. Let your friends know about the podcast and make sure that you are subscribed on iTunes. When you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, you will receive new podcast episodes as soon as they are posted. Also, we will be posting bonus podcast episodes at 5minutemd.com, including special podcast episodes not available on iTunes or YouTube. If you're finding the information on this podcast helpful, you may want to check out these episodes as well. And lastly, if you have a few minutes, stop on by iTunes and leave our podcast a review. Thank you so much for listening, and remember to make today count. I will see you at the next 5.